everyone. Good morning. So wonderful to see all of you. I have to say, I'm a bundle of nerves every time I get up here. I know it seems like, oh, she's so confident. Now I'm like freaking out inside. Always nervous. But today I'm going to talk about what to do when you're feeling nervous. So today's sermon is called What's Going On? What to Do in Times of Uncertainty. So I have a confession to make. I've actually been feeling pretty anxious a lot the last 2 weeks or so. A lot of change has happened very, very suddenly, not just here in our local church community, but also part of, all of the sweeping changes nationally that we've been seeing in our organization. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions. I think many of you guys maybe have been feeling the same kind of roller coaster of emotions. So just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Nancy Jubb. I am the assistant pastor here in New Jersey Family Church of Clifton. I'm also the communications director for Family Federation for World Peace and Unification USA, which it's best described as a network of churches and families that believe world peace is possible through the School of Love, also known as the family. And we offer the Holy Marriage Blessing to do just that. And New Jersey Family Church is a part of that national network of churches. So 2 weeks ago, our senior executive pastor, Dr. Chung-Shik Young, was suddenly asked to come back to Korea. And I think we in the community were suddenly like, what? Right? And then just a couple of days later, Pastor Naokimi, who was also serving as president of Family Federation, was asked to, he also stepped down. And oh my God, another, 2 days later, what's going on, And I think we were all kind of like, what's happening? Do we not have any pastors anymore? Are we going to be left with no pastors? What's happening, right? And then a couple days later, we hear, Reverend Damian Dunkley, who used to serve as president of Family Federation in North America, he's been asked to come back and to fill in that role, and just sweeping change. Every day was a new announcement, new change. Oh my God. Some people were asking me, is Pastor Naokimi still the pastor? Yes, he is. I just want to re-emphasize that point. But yeah, it's shocking. And I think that it's very much human nature in times of uncertainty that we try to imagine what's going to happen, right? We're like, I don't know what's going on, so what could happen? Okay, well, this could happen. Maybe if I reflect back to Reverend Dunkley is coming back, and this is what happened before in the past, so maybe I can try to predict what's gonna happen in the future, and we kind of get stuck in this tendency to try to predict the future. And that's normal. That's a normal human response. But we do have to be careful that there is a hidden danger in trying to do that too much. It's one thing to try to prepare ourselves for different possibilities, but when we're trying to anticipate what's going to happen in order to control my reality, to escape the uncomfortable feelings that I'm feeling right here, right now, we are actually doing ourselves harm. When we avoid feeling vulnerable, when we avoid feeling uncomfortable, we actually don't realize that we are we're cutting ourselves off from experiencing the fullness of life. Because actually the research of emotion shows that you cannot choose which emotions you want to feel. I only want to feel joy. I only want to feel happiness. I want to know exactly what's going to happen to me so I don't have to be afraid. But when you don't feel fear and discomfort and vulnerability especially, then actually you can't fully feel joy either. You can't fully experience happiness. And that's really hard. It's really hard to allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, right? So here, I'd like to share with you 4 steps that can help us to lean into that discomfort. So the first one is to practice acceptance. This one is very hard. So I'd like to share a little bit about what is confidence, because I think this understanding of confidence can also help us to understand how to accept uncertainty a little bit. So uncertainty by itself, it's not actually a bad thing, but we kind of are like, ooh, I don't know what's going on, and that's bad, it's dangerous, I feel uncomfortable. But, research shows that when journalists acknowledge the uncertainties around facts on complex issues like climate change or immigration, it doesn't actually undermine the reader's trust. Actually, when they admit, I don't actually know all of the details or the nuances around this issue, people are like, oh, I trust that person. They actually trust people more when they admit uncertainty. And multiple experiments have shown that when experts express doubt, they become more persuasive. When you hear somebody say, I don't have all of the answers on this, people actually trust that person more. And so it's very counterintuitive. We think that somebody who's confident, they know everything. They have the answers. They can tell me what to do in this situation. But actually, acknowledging uncertainty is a function of grounded confidence. And in a way, it's also a form of true humility, right? And so developing what's called grounded confidence is driven by a commitment to learning and improving. In Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown explains the near enemy of learning and improving, of grounded confidence, the near enemy of that is knowing and proving. In our culture, we're quick to mistake knowing and proving for confidence. Oh, that person has all the answers, so they must be very confident. When actually, this need to know, this kind of like rigidity of like, I'm right, I'm absolutely right, it's actually a function of low self-worth. So, accepting uncertainty. I don't know what's going on, but I'm okay. I will be okay, right? And a great example of this is the Serenity Prayer. Is anybody familiar with the Serenity Prayer? I see a few hands going up, yes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is a form of acceptance, to acknowledge that I don't know what's happening around me, but maybe I can't control those things. But I can control what's within my power in my life, in the here and the now. So this prayer is really, it's a form of what's called intellectual humility. It's a willingness to consider that there's information that might not fit with our current thinking. And people who demonstrate intellectual humility, they don't lack confidence or conviction. They may hold strong views, but they're also open to hearing other points of view. And they're curious and willing to adjust their beliefs when faced with new or conflicting information. Humility allows us to admit when we are wrong. We realize that getting it right is more important than needing to prove that we are right. And so I can't change the things that are going on around me, but I can change myself. I can change my understanding. I can change my practice of things, of my beliefs, of my values. And when I change myself, actually your circumstances change too. And I've often experienced these moments where when I am open to acceptance and surrender and to change myself, instead of trying to change the other person, the universe kind of unfolds. God just opens the path for me, and things just fall into place like I never expected. I couldn't even imagine that it would happen that way. And I'll come back to this in a minute. So the next point is let go and let God, also known as surrender, trust, faith. We're a faith community, right? So in 1 Peter 5:6-10, but 5:7, verse 7 is actually kind of the key right here. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. To me, the key part of that phrase is because he cares for you. In our faith community, we call God our heavenly parent, right? Because we believe that God is our parent. When we know that we are loved, we feel safe. And in that safety, we're able to face uncertainty. We're able to face suffering or difficulty. But it comes back to remembering that love. Without that, it's much harder to face uncertainty. It's much harder to face difficulty, things we don't know that are going to happen, because it's too scary. It's too scary. And so we need that love to really feel safe. And this is an excerpt from Tyler Stanton's Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools. The part of the Lord's Prayer, your will be done. This part of prayer is about releasing control. Think of something in your life you're wrestling for control over. Name one thing you've never released to God, or perhaps you released it in the past, but you're trying to grab it back. When you've come up with it, name it and release it. Ask for filling from the Spirit in place of releasing, peace in place of anxiety, trust in place of fear, and so on. Posture can be helpful in this act of prayer as you open your hands, right? Sometimes we see people pray like this, right? Open your hands. Picture in your hands some part of your life, something you're clenching too tightly to and trying to force your will on. When you are ready, flip over your hands, physically symbolizing letting go, releasing control to God, setting those circumstances at the feet of Jesus. Turn your hands upward once again, this time open to receive the fruit of the Spirit in place of what you just released. Your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Having released control and surrender our own will, we are now free to see our lives, our relationships, our community, and our world through the eyes of God. It's from this place that we ask with hearts full of faith and hope. So face my uncertainty, acknowledge it, and then trust. Have faith. It's not easy, but this is why the serenity prayer, why this practice of offering it up, acknowledging to God what I'm going through right here, right now, is so important. What can I let go of? What is God asking of me right here, right now? And sometimes when things are like, we don't know what's going on, or we have a specific idea of what we think should happen, it's really important in that moment to ask questions. When I accept what I don't know, I can ask questions. I can learn. I can face the uncertainty. And I've mentioned this story before in previous sermons, but I used to struggle a lot with Pastor Naokimi. We used to trigger each other so hard, and he would say things, and I'm like, what? How do you come to that conclusion? What? That doesn't make any sense to me. No, we need to do it this way. We need to do it this way. I know, and you don't know, and so you've got to change. But actually, when I was able to let go of that and to say, oh, maybe he has a perspective that I don't know, I don't see. I'm jumping to conclusions about what he's saying. I'm making assumptions. I can ask questions. I can say to him, take a deep breath. I don't understand what you mean by that because my experience says the other way, but I would like to know, how did you reach that conclusion? Or how did you come to that point of view? Because I don't understand. But it's important for me to understand what you're thinking so that we can do better work together. And by asking those questions, then I could see, oh yes, I was making big assumptions, and I can see actually where he came to that conclusion. That makes sense. I could be more open. I could let go of clinging to my own ideas. I could surrender in the moment. And that surrender brought unity. We could come together and work better together through that. And so when, unity is one of the values that I really, really believe in. And by practicing that, by coming into alignment with myself, by practicing surrender instead of pushing, like holding on tight to my own ideas, by not being afraid, then things started to unfold where we could work better together, and we became a team. And then I was able to step into an assistant pastor role and support this community and really, free Pastor Naokimi to focus on the areas where he had the most passion and strength. And I could bring my passion and strength to this community as well. And we could serve together instead of fighting each other. Thank you. And so another point that's really important is be mindful, also known as practicing awareness. So it's really, really easy to kind of get lost in our own thoughts, right? When we don't know what's happening, we think, okay, what's gonna happen? This might happen, this might happen, this might. Our worries consume us, right? So, there's a trauma researcher, Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote a famous book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about trauma. So trauma causes us to disconnect from the present moment. When we've experienced something deeply painful, that pain actually becomes trapped inside of our body. And then when something triggers that same kind of memory to come up, our body starts to experience all the same physical sensations that happened when we were in fear. But because we're so, the fear and the pain of that moment is so strong that we actually separate our minds and bodies. We don't realize that we are experiencing that fear in our body. We just know, like, we start to get really anxious and we start swirling around up here, and then often it will bring on like a panic attack. And the way to heal that, actually, the research shows the way to heal that is to ground yourself in your present reality. To say to yourself that this happened in the past, but it's not happening right now. I am safe. I am okay. And so, there's a cognitive behavioral therapy exercise that you can do. This is a really great one. If you're experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, like something's happening, you're just so worried. This is something you can do right there in that moment to interrupt the negative patterns of thinking. So you name 5 things you can see. Your hands, the sky, a plant, in the chapel. Name 5 things you can see. Name 4 things you can physically feel. I feel my linen jacket. I feel my feet on the ground. I feel my husband's hand when he holds it. Name 4 things that you can feel. Name 3 things you can hear. The wind, my children's laughter, my breath. Name 2 things you can smell. I smell some of the sweatiness in this room from being so hot. Probably myself. Or I smell the soap that I use to wash my hands with. And name 1 thing that you can taste. I taste the coffee I had this morning still. But this exercise helps you to shift your focus to what's here right now in the present, right? And that is the serenity prayer. That is accepting the things I cannot control. It's accepting what I can feel, what I can sense right here, right now. It's bringing me into this moment. And this can help us interrupt those unhealthy patterns, the thinking. It interrupts the thinking so we can start again in my mind. Start again. Release. Let go. Okay. Change my thinking. What can I control in this moment? What can I do? So this is really an essential teaching. And this is something that's also taught in Buddhism. The past and our often regretful memories are not reality. The future is an imagined fiction conjured up to satisfy our selfish need to pretend we are stable, self-existent, that I'm separate from everything else going on around me, but we are not. The Aranya Sutra asks why Buddha's students have such good complexions. They do not mourn for the past, they do not yearn for the future, they live on the present. This is an essence of the middle way, somewhere between the two extremes. There lives a just right way of living, which is living in the now. And our founders, who we affectionately refer to as true parents or Father and Mother Moon, they give us guidance and words to live by, to practice what we understand in our faith. Each of us has two aspects, mind and body. Our true mind wants to touch our body with heart and give love to it. We should think of our mind as God's mind because God loves it, and that is where He dwells. Look at each man or woman as a holy person. Regard each person's body as sacred and their mind as hallowed. If you live like this, soon you will hear inside of yourself a small voice, the sound of your mind. Wherever you walk, no evil or darkness can remain. Only good spirits can touch you if you create an atmosphere. If you place yourself in such a position, then the spirit world will pour down upon you its abundant blessing and power. So what does that mean? It means to trust that God is speaking to me through my conscience, my heart. When we look for validation through external circumstances, we're assuming that God is outside of myself. If I'm looking for a sign outside of me, then we're like, oh, God is separate from me. But God created each and every one of us, right? And so when in this quote, we should think of our mind as God's mind. God is our heavenly parent. What would He say to us in that moment? What would He say to us? God is always trying to guide us, but we ignore our gut feeling. We ignore our intuition. And that's why we pray and we meditate, so that we can try to tune in. What is God speaking to me? What is God speaking to me in this moment? What is within my control, not what is outside of my control? What's going on in the providence of the nation or the international providence? It's good to know those things, but what is God asking me to do right here, right now? Right here and right now. So we should practice our mind being like a parent to our emotions, to our bodies. How can I practice love and acceptance for myself in this moment? Do I need to remind myself that I'm safe? Isn't that what our parents do for us when we're scared, when we're feeling uncomfortable? They look at us and they say, "You are okay." And the last point that I'd like to share is to offer gratitude. Mother Moon shared with us back in 1984, and this is my favorite quote of hers, and I carry it with me all the time. It is the goal of my life to have a heart which is grateful every day, in order to live endeavoring to be more grateful today than yesterday, and to be more grateful tomorrow than today. When we're grateful, we are able to face uncertainty because we start from a place of, I have what I need. I have enough. But when we focus on our fears, on our worries, our fears end up driving us to do things that we don't even realize that we're doing. There's another phrase for this. It's that in the moment, we react instead of respond. And so gratitude daily gratitude, really thinking on what do I have in my life that I'm so grateful for. Just writing down 3 things that you are grateful for each day can help ground you so that you can face your fears, face uncertainty, and not let that fear control you. So again, practice acceptance. Let go and let God. Be mindful and offer gratitude. And as a reflection point for today, where am I feeling unsure about things in my life right now? Thank you.